So let's talk about slope. Slope is, well, every line has a direction. Does it go up and to the right? Does it go up and to the left? Is it horizontal? Is it vertical? And the way we describe that is something that's called slope. Now, slope, okay, you'll hear this phrase every once in a while. It's called rise over run. And that's how we really kind of describe the way a line moves. For instance, if I had this line right here, if I wanted to talk about how it slants in that upward direction, we're going to talk about how far up and then how far over it goes from one point to the next. For instance, I have this point and this point. If I wanted to talk about the slope of this line, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how far up to get from here to here. Up, 1, 2. Then how far over? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I would write the slope of this line as up 2 and then to the right 5. And the way you talk about that, okay, this rise, okay, you always talk about it in terms of the rise, or in other words, going up, and then how far left and right. And you notice that's different, or the opposite of the way you describe the location of coordinates. When we were talking about the location of a coordinate, you did the x coordinate first, and then the y coordinate. And you also notice that slope is written as a fraction. Okay? Now, another thing. What if I didn't want to talk about the slope of this line from this point to this point? What if I wanted to talk about this one going down to this one? Well, that's fine. You can talk about that too. And then if you talk about going down instead of going up, you talk about it in terms of a negative. So you'd say -2. And then when you talk about in terms of going left, you'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left, be -5. But we all know that negative over negative is a positive, and so we get the exact same answer. Now, finding slope of a line like that isn't terribly difficult. Like I said, you just simply look at it and you can just count, rise, run. But if I don't have the graph, then I need to be able to come up with a way to find the slope without looking at the graph. And we have something that's called the slope formula. Okay, and that's what I have up here. Okay, the change in y, so in other words, what we do is we take two coordinates. Okay, for instance, if I have this coordinate, we'll call it x1, y1, and then this one, x2, y2. And what you do is you simply subtract your y coordinates, okay, and divide that by subtracting your x coordinates, and that's how you get that whole rise over run. Okay, the rise is the change in the y's along the y-axis. The run is the change in the x's along the x-axis. Okay, another thing that we might, that I haven't mentioned yet, but is the symbol for slope. The symbol for slope is m. So sometimes you'll see m equals. So that's just telling you what is the slope. So let's try some examples here. I got some examples down here for us. What about this first one? If I have 2 points, 5, 2, and 8, 7, what's the slope between them? So what we would do is m equals, and I would do y2. So if you label these, this is x1, y1, x2, y2. So I would do 7 minus 2 over 8 minus 5. Now some people are a little concerned in the fact that it'll be y2 minus y1. It doesn't really matter the order. You can do y1 minus y2, x1 minus x2. It doesn't have to be y2 minus y1. So as long as you keep, if you do the second y coordinate first, then you have to do the second x coordinate first. That's all that really matters. So let's finish this up. 7 minus 2 is 5. 8 minus 5 is 3. So my slope is 5/3. Again, remember, you're going to write it as a fraction. Okay, let's try another one. So slope between these, I do 8 minus 3 over 4 minus -2. So 8 minus 3 is 5. 4 minus the -2 is 6. Slope is 5/6. Hopefully that's pretty straightforward. Let's move on down. We're going to skip over the third one. Let's go on to the fourth one here. if it says the slope between 1, 2, and 5, 2. So I would do 2 minus 2 over 5 minus 1. 2 minus 2 is 0. 5 minus 1 is 4. So now we have kind of a special situation here. We have 0 over 4. What does that equal? Well, that equals 0. That equals 0. And we're going to talk about in just a minute, okay, what kind of line that is that gives me a slope that is 0. Okay, last one. Let's try this one. So here I'll do 5 minus 1 over 2 minus 2. 5 minus 1 is 4. 2 minus 2 is 0. So again, we're in a special situation here. You got this 0 down here. You can't have 4 out of nothing. Okay, so that's an impossible situation. So what we do is we call this undefined. An easy way to remember is when 0 is it's undefined. I'll just use UND to remind us. And again, that's a special situation too, and that's something we're going to talk about right now. We're going to talk about horizontal and vertical lines. Horizontal lines, for those of us who are don't know what a horizontal line looks like, it looks like this. Okay, all horizontal lines have 0 as its slope. Okay, it's an actual number, 0. Okay, and if you don't believe me, okay, for instance here, if we have points 3, 2 and negative 1, 2, if I just take a quick look, you know, 3, 2 is somewhere over here, negative 1, 2 is somewhere over here, and you notice if we connect them, it creates a horizontal line. And if we were to do slope formula, okay, if I were to do slope formula, I would do 2 minus 2 over negative 1 minus 3, so I get 0 over negative 4, which we know is 0. And that's something that you just need to know. You need to know that every single horizontal line has 0 slope. Now conversely, vertical lines. Okay, a vertical line looks like this. And vertical lines have undefined slope. And remember, undefined is just kind of a fancy word for it doesn't exist. It's impossible. Okay? And again, if we just use an example here, you know, if we talk about these points here, 3, 2 is up here somewhere, 3, negative 5 is down here, so it creates a vertical line. And so if I were to use the slope formula, I do negative 5 minus 2 over 3 minus 3, which is negative 7 over 0. And so that's our undefined. Sorry, I'm running out of room right there. Just write UND right there. So every time you have a vertical line, it's undefined. That slope is. Not the equation. The slope is undefined. Okay, so let's use some of this newfound knowledge for slope. What's the whole point of slope? Well, it allows us to write or graph lines. So for instance, what if I am told that I want up this point, negative 3, 4, and I want a slope of negative 2/5. So in other words, I want to draw a line that goes through this point and uses this slope. So what I would do is I'd graph this, negative 3, 1, 2, 3, and then up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'd put it right there. And then, if I want this line to have a slope of negative 2/5, I'm going to use this to create the rest of my line. So remember, negative 2 is my rise, so that means I'm going to go down 2, and then to the right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then I can do it again if I want. Down 2 and the right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you notice it creates a line. And normally I'd use a straight edge, but I don't have one handy right now, so I'll just try and freehand it. Okay, it's not too bad. And there you go. There's a line that goes through the point negative 3, 4 and has slope negative 2/5. Let's try another one. What about this one? I want you to draw a line that goes through 4, 1 and has slope of 1/2. So I'd go to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1. And then slope 1/2, I'd go up 1 to the right 2. Up 1 to the right 2. And then draw my line. Okay? Now, let's get down to these last two. Last two, this one says I go through the point 2, 3 and has slope 0. So 2, 3. Now we just talked about this. if I have slope 0, what kind of line is that? Okay, every type of line, every one of these types of lines has slope 0. We just talked about it right above, and that's a horizontal line. So I'm just going to simply draw a horizontal line to that point. Okay, so hopefully you'll know this one then. If I want to draw the line that goes through negative 5, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 4, 2, 3, 4. This time my slope's undefined. Well, again, just above we talked about this, and every vertical line has an undefined slope, so I'm just going to draw a vertical line. Okay, and there you have it. There is the beginning of the use of the slope formula and the use of slope.